All right. Well, hello, everybody.
Good morning.
Happy Thursday. How's everyone today? So good to see you guys. So we are here today on, I always get this confused, Get Paid. I should know by now. We're here on Get Paid, and we are talking about the challenges that women face as professionals, as workers, as moms, as women in the workforce, and identifying those challenges and giving some perspective around how can we counter them. If we are a company or if we are leaders in a company that care about culture and our employees, what can we do? And then what are those challenges? How do we face them? And so, past studies have shown, and, as we looked at like HBR and other research, past studies have shown that people were more productive when they worked from home than in the office. However, with the onset of COVID, that productivity takes on a very different look. And so I feel like there's a lot to talk about. So we're just going to jump in. Deb, why don't you kick it off? What are some of the challenges that women are facing in this new reality?
Yeah. So just to back up just a second to say that, pre-pandemic, women had challenges already. So we've talked about some of this, but we know there have been pay and equity challenges. But then the pandemic has just sort of amplified everything. And with women being the largest group in general, and women of color even larger within that group, of dropping out of the workforce due to the pandemic. And now there continue to be challenges, not just for women who are now looking for work, but also for women who are still working, but experiencing challenges as we start to come out of the pandemic. So,
can we stop for 1 second? So yeah. I think what you said was really important. And I want to make sure everyone understands and heard that, right? So when you talked about women, and especially women of color, dropping out, and then talk about more of the challenges, but can you talk more about the whole idea of the dropout? Because what I don't want people to misconstrue that is that they remove themselves because they were like frivolous or just like, I don't want to work. And you never know who's watching, and people hear things differently. So can you talk a little bit more about that dropout syndrome that we've seen?
So there's two major buckets for sure. One is women who had to stop working, even if they were able to work at home, they had to stop working because the childcare issues that they had to take on, either as maybe a single parent or even if they had a dual income, they made the decision that their husband or spouse would continue to work. So they had to drop out and become full-time caregivers, depending maybe on the age of their kids or some of the struggles or challenges they had without childcare. And then the other group, generally speaking, was a lot of women are frontline workers and essential workers. And if they didn't have a backup plan or any care, or they had other struggles, maybe with an aging parent or something like that, that tends to fall on the women. So that is why that they've coined the name she-cession about this recession, because it is so female forward.
Yes.
Is that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because, especially for women of color, they tend to have less of a support system. And so, and are more hourly workers where you have to take off more, schools were inconsistent, just a lot of challenges. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no problem. And so the first challenge I was just going to talk about is for women who either are working at home currently or have jobs that they're going back to, that they're looking for work that would be considered office work. There's a lot of question marks around how people are going to return to work. And there are now employers who are kind of sliding from, anyone can work from home to a hybrid to a very prescribed hybrid. And who knows, some may go back to full offices if they can. So I think for women, one of the challenges will be if they have an office type of situation is finding work or having work that is still flexible, that allows for their work from home needs, that allows for their flexibility.
So I think that point is really important, and everyone needs something different, right? And so if I am speaking to the leaders out there who have workers who are coming back, here's an excellent opportunity for you to lead with equity and to be empathetic. And so the only way to do either of those is to be open to conversations. Ask your employees what their needs are. Don't be afraid to have a conversation. And the flip side for employees, if this is not a time, this is the best time ever to just put it out there. You know, oftentimes we're told keep your personal to yourself, but now that people are in your house, literally, you know, between Zoom and how we've been working, then it's really difficult to draw that line. So use that opportunity to have an honest conversation with your leaders so that they know what your needs are. And oftentimes what you find is that you're not the only one who has similar needs, and there are ways to group people together so that needs can be addressed. So that would be my first recommendation as you are building a flexible work culture.
Yeah, and I would just, one thing to add to that would say that if you are hiring and women, you know, it would be great if the companies could lead with their policy so that people don't have to wonder and ask about what the flexibility is, because for some women, it's going to be key in if they accept a new job and what that looks like. So instead of making somebody feel awkward and worried, maybe you just lead with, hey, this is how we're returning to work. What do you need? So that's one challenge. The second challenge is, I think, for essential workers and frontline workers is, you know, we're still in a situation where things are distanced. There's fewer people in stores, there's fewer people in restaurants, there's fewer people in travel and hospitality. So there's, you know, the jobs are still fewer and far between. But once they start to come back, there's still going to be the need for support because of childcare, elder care, other things. So will remain a challenge for those frontline workers who don't have the chance to work from home.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, those challenges, like you said, to frontline workers or any worker, right? Child care, parent care, that category has really been number one with the challenge for women, and it leads to the flexibility issue. And so an option for leaders or for companies who care about their culture and their employees is to come up with, you know, negotiate something with a company like a care.com, or create some sort of bonus for your employees to offset the cost of childcare or elder care. You know, there are volume discounts you can get with other companies. There are options out there that you can offset that burden for your employees. So again, you know, care.com is a great company. They have housekeepers, they have childcare, they have adult care, or if there is an adult daycare there are ways to work around the issues that are out there for your employees when it comes to caring for others. You know, even with childcare, a lot of, I think it was 70% of parents interviewed said that pre-pandemic situation with childcare, they saw a significant, either their childcare facilities had to close due to COVID, or the capacity reduction was untenable. And so that's why a company like a care.com or something would be much more helpful. And then you could offset that as an employer.
Definitely. It's like, you know, you call people essential and then you don't treat them like they're essential. These are the people that kept us going through this pandemic. So to your point, some infrastructure and policy in place would be so helpful. And I think my final challenge is one that continues on, which we have talked about, and that is just the general pay and benefits and opportunities that are afforded to women in general. And so it's a challenge for women who are going back into the workforce, if they had to drop out for a reason and now they're going back, they have to have the security of a good paycheck, of good benefits, of feeling like they're going to get promoted or they're going to be put in a job that they're actually really qualified for. And there won't be that bias, because if they can't afford to go back into the workforce because they have childcare issues and they can't, sometimes it's just not worth it. So companies have to, acknowledge that those biases continue, that the disparities, particularly with women of color, which we have talked about before, it's time now to close those gaps and make it okay for women to be able to come back to a workplace that wants them.
Yeah, that's kind of a given. Like, I don't even have a tip. What my thing to that is you just have to do it. Like, as a leader, as a business owner, if I am doing the same job as Joe, then I should be paid equitably with Joe, right? There should be pay parity no matter what, right? Pay parity, support parity. And, we're no longer in the days where, oh, well, we're going to give Joe a little extra leniency, or we're going to give Joe, some more money because Joe's the head of a household. That's not, maybe Joe is, but so am I. And so that needs to be foremost up front. If your policy and your procedure just needs to be about equality, right? And equity. And they're not the same. So when I said one, I had to say the other. And so that's a given. The other thing we cannot walk away from this conversation without talking about, though, is just mental health, right? And stress. And the stress that was brought on, by a pandemic. Hello? When I heard the word pandemic, I was like, wait, what? I've never even would expect that we'd be in the middle of a pandemic, right? So that's the first thing. That word itself just makes people stress out because people are dying. It's horrible. Then how are we managing it? And what is the expectation that's put on us? Overworking, the challenges that you mentioned, Deb, that whole space that we're in, burnout, stress. We were already burnt out and stressed before we went into this terrible situation. So how do we handle it, and how can companies counter that? Again, there are tools. There are small things that could mean a lot. There are apps. They have subscriptions. Maybe you get a company-wide subscription and you offer free subscriptions to your employees. Mm-hmm. There are counseling services that, again, maybe you do a volume discount and you offer that to people, or you help them set up their schedules so that there are breaks in the day and that those breaks can be used to breathe, do something else, spend time with the kids, but help them get through the day in a less stressful way. So, that's important too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I'll just end my thoughts by saying that, the paradigm has shifted. So COVID shifted it. Now it's time to acknowledge that many, many people were affected, not only women, but women were more affected and will continue to be. So what can we do now? Because now we're going to be behind the 8 ball because things have changed. So it's important to really value women and figure out ways to get really talented women securely back into the workforce.
Absolutely. So here's my bottom line. I totally agree with what you said, and I'm just going to bring it home with this. We are in a time that no one could have expected, and we don't know when it's going to end, quite honestly. We have fits and starts and back and forth, and so we just need to, understand that women have they've carried the burden of most of what it takes to be successful, right? And we're in the workforce, we're teaching kids, we are birthing kids, we're feeding kids, we're playing on, we are indoor recess monitors, we're all those things, right? Right? And so we, number one, need support. We need support from our employers. We need support from our partners. We need support from each other and overall grace. And I would say that is the bottom line for me. It's time for that support and equitable treatment. It's time.
Agree.
Yeah.
This was a great conversation. Next week, I guess, will be a surprise. We will figure out what our topic is. I know we haven't talked about it yet, but I'm sure it'll be something interesting. And this has been a really good conversation. I'm glad we had it.
Yeah, me too. You know, and as we think about next week, because we have a few minutes, I'm thinking there's been a lot of talk, and people have been reaching out to me, Deb, about, hey, there's so much going on right now. It feels like we're back to last spring and summer, right? Yeah. How do we address it again so that it's not just old news? So maybe that's something we could talk about. I'd love to hear anyone who's, you know, tuned in. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Does it feel like that to you? Does it feel like Groundhog Day, in where we thought we were making progress, but now we just have more to deal with? So not to bring us down, but just to give you something to think about. There's a lot going on. So thanks for joining us. I'm sure we'll have lots of stuff to talk about next week. Take care and be safe.
Bye, everyone.
Get paid. Bye.